It wasn't the lie that broke her. It was the applause. In the gilded world of Manhattan's elite, Everick and Alina Winscott were the ultimate power couple, a tech billionaire, and his brilliant, beautiful, and very pregnant wife. Their life was a carefully curated masterpiece. But when a single damning receipt appeared, the masterpiece began to crack. What followed was not just a quiet heartbreak, but a cold, calculated war. This is the story of how a woman pushed to the edge, refused to be a victim, and instead orchestrated a public spectacle so devastating it brought an entire empire to its knees. The penthouse at 15 Central Park West was less of a home and more of a statement. It was a silent testament to the dizzying success of Everick Winscott, a man who had wrestled the digital world into submission and emerged a billionaire before his 40th birthday. Every surface was polished marble or gleaming chrome. Every piece of art was a conversation starter, and every window offered a godlike view of the city he considered his kingdom. And in the heart of this kingdom was his queen, Alina Winscott. At 34, Alina was more than just a beautiful accessory to Everick's wealth. With a degree in art history from Yale and a lineage that traced back to old New York money, she possessed a quiet intelligence and a steely grace that the city's fawning socialites could only imitate. Now 7 months pregnant with their first child, a son, they knew her body was changing, but her composure remained absolute. The pregnancy, however, had not been easy. It was classified as too high risk, a delicate condition that had forced Alina to retreat from her position on the board of the Met and confined her to a life of quiet observation. It was in this forced stillness that she first began to notice the cracks. It started subtly. A scent on Everick's Tom Ford suit jacket when he came home late from a bored dinner. It wasn't the stale cigar smoke of his usual associates or the familiar, cloying perfumes of their wives. It was something younger, sweeter. Joe Malone's peony and blush suede. A scent Alina recognized from the gaggle of junior assistants at his company Winscott Innovations. She had dismissed it. A hug, a handshake, the proximity of a crowded elevator. Then came the late nights, more frequent than ever. The excuses were plausible, of course. A server farm crisis in Virginia, a hostile takeover bid from a competitor in Silicon Valley, a last-minute flight to London to soothe anxious investors. Everick was a man who moved the world, and the world was a demanding mistress. He would return at 3 a.m., smelling of expensive whiskey and exhaustion, kissing her forehead, with lips that felt strangely disconnected from the man she knew. "Don't wait up for me, Elle." He'd murmur, his voice a low thrum of apology. "It's a beast right now. Just a few more weeks and I'm all yours. Ours." He'd place a hand on her swollen belly, a gesture that once thrilled her, but now felt like a performance. The first real, undeniable splinter of suspicion lodged itself in her heart on a Tuesday. Everick was supposedly in Chicago, closing a deal. Alina was struggling with insomnia, her mind a frantic carousel of baby names and birth plans. At 2:17 a.m., she padded into their cavernous walk-in closet to fetch an extra pillow. Everick's travel valet case, which was supposed to be with him, was sitting on his mahogany dresser. A careless oversight. A cold dread washed over her. Her hand trembled as she unzipped it. Inside, nestled among his neatly folded shirts, was the folio for their American Express black card. She never looked at the statements. Everick's business manager, a stern man named Mr. Abernathy, handled everything. But a single receipt had slipped out, lying face up. It wasn't for a steak dinner at Gibson's in Chicago, or a suite at the Peninsula. It was a charge from a boutique hotel in a part of Manhattan they never frequented Soho, the Serafina Hotel, for a junior suite. The charge was dated 2 weeks prior, on a night Everick was supposed to have been working late at his office, just a few blocks from their home. Alina sank onto a velvet ottoman, the receipt feeling like a shard of ice in her hand. It wasn't the money. It was the geography. The lie. The Serafina wasn't a place for business meetings. It was a place for secrets, with its discreet entrance and rooms designed for illicit romance. Her mind reeled back. 2 weeks ago. A Wednesday. He had come home smelling of rain and that same sweet perfume. He'd told her he'd been caught in a downpour after a meeting, ran late, forced to share a cab with his assistant. It had all sounded so reasonable then. Now it sounded like a script. She put the receipt back, zipped the case, and returned to bed. She lay there, her body rigid, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs. The baby kicked a sudden sharp reminder of the life they were supposed to be building together. For the first time, Alina Winscott felt a terrifying primal rage build within her. She was not a fool. She was not a woman to be placated with diamonds and empty gestures. She was a partner, a mother-to-be, and she would not have her life, her family dismantled by a cheap lie and a secret hotel room in Soho. Sleep was impossible. As the sun began to cast a grey dawn over the city, Alina made a decision. She would not cry. She would not scream. She would gather facts. She would become her own investigator. The art historian in her knew that to understand a masterpiece, you had to study every brushstroke, every layer of paint, every hidden detail. Her marriage, her life was her masterpiece, and she was about to uncover its forgery. The next morning, Alina moved with a chilling, newfound purpose. When Everick called from Chicago, his voice oozing with a practiced affection that now sounded grotesque to her, she was the perfect wife. She asked about the deal, feigned a sleepy yawn, and told him she loved him. Each word was a carefully chosen weapon, a piece of camouflage for the war she was now waging in secret. "Love you more, Elle. The jet's on the tarmac. I'll be home in time to kiss you good night," he'd said. "I'll be waiting," she replied, her voice as smooth as glass. After the call, her work began. She didn't start with his phone or computer. That was amateurish. Everick was a tech mogul. His digital security would be a fortress. She started with the one thing even he couldn't fully digitize: his ego. Her first stop was her laptop, not in their shared office, but in the sun-drenched breakfast nook, a place he associated with her reading gardening magazines. She began with the name of the hotel, the Serafina. She studied its website, its clientele, its press. It was exactly as she'd feared, a haven for the wealthy and discreet, known for its no-questions-asked policy. Then she moved on to the more complex task, the American Express account. Everick had given her a supplementary card, but she had never used the online portal. She knew his business manager, Abernathy, had primary access. Getting past him would be impossible. But what about the supplementary account? Her account. She went to the Amex website and clicked Forgot Password, entering her card details. The security question popped up. What is the name of your first pet? A wave of nostalgia, sharp and painful, hit her. It was a golden retriever named Winston. They had gotten together in the first year of their marriage. Everick had cried the day he died. The memory felt like a betrayal. She typed Winston, access granted. Her heart hammered against her ribs as the portal loaded. She clicked on Statements. There, in crisp PDF format, were the last 12 months of her supplementary cards activity, which was nothing. She never used it. But the portal gave her another option: view all account activity. She clicked it. A list of transactions appeared, both his and hers. Her breath hitched. She wasn't just looking at a statement. She was looking at the secret diary of her husband's life. She scrolled past the multi-thousand-dollar charges at Ethelred's for business dinners, the payments to NetJets, the endless stream of money that fueled their life. She was looking for anomalies, small charges that would fly under the radar of a business manager looking for major fraud. A $200 charge at a florist in a neighborhood they never went to. Multiple charges for Ubers that didn't start or end at their home or his office. And then she found it. A recurring charge, once every 2 weeks for the last 4 months. A payment of $450 to a CJ Art Advisory. It was coded as professional services. It was just small enough to be an insignificant business expense, a consultation perhaps, but it was the consistency that caught her eye. It was too regular. A quick Google search for CJ Art Advisory brought up a sleek, minimalist website. The founder, sole proprietor, and chief curator was a woman named Chloe Jensen. The About page featured a photograph of her. She was young, maybe 27, with sharp, intelligent eyes, a sweep of dark hair, and a confident smile. She was standing in front of a large, abstract canvas, looking every bit the ambitious, chic New Yorker. The website listed her gallery address. It was in Chelsea. Alina felt a cold certainty settle in her bones. This was her. This was the woman who wore peony and blush suede. But she needed more than a recurring payment. A business relationship, however unlikely, was still deniable. She needed to link Chloe Jensen to Everick personally, incontrovertibly. Her mind, trained to find patterns and connections in art, now applied that same skill to infidelity. She remembered a charity gala they had attended 5 months ago, the Art for Tomorrow benefit. Everick had been a major sponsor. She pulled up the event's web page, scrolling through the photo gallery, and there he was, Everick smiling with his arm around a beaming Chloe Jensen. The caption read, "Event benefactor Everick Winscott, with gallery owner Chloe Jensen, who curated tonight's successful auction." In the photo, Chloe was looking at Everick with an expression of pure, unadulterated adoration. Everick, in turn, was looking at the camera, but his body was angled toward her, a subtle intimacy in their posture that Alina, in her blissful ignorance that night, had completely missed. The pieces were clicking into place. The meeting, the art advisory payments as a cover, the secret hotel stays. Alina's next step was bolder. She needed to see Chloe's life, her habits. Using a name she'd used for anonymous auction bidding in the past, Helena Vane, she created a new Instagram account. It was a ghost account, no profile picture, no followers. She searched for Chloe Jensen. Her profile was public. It was a gallery of a life lived for an audience. Chloe at gallery openings. Chloe sipping rosé at a rooftop bar in the meatpacking district. Chloe on a weekend trip to the Hamptons. Alina scrolled back through months of posts, her eyes scanning for any sign of Everick. He was too smart to appear in a photo, but his presence was there like a ghost. A photo of Chloe's wrist, adorned with a delicate gold bracelet. A Cartier Love bracelet. Alina felt a chill. She herself had the same one, a 3rd anniversary gift from Everick. Was it a coincidence, or was it a sick, twisted signature of his affection? Then she saw it. A post from 2 weeks ago. Chloe holding a coffee cup, sitting in a sunlit cafe. The caption read, "Soho mornings are my favorite. Caffeine hushed city life hatch inspiration. In the reflection of the large window behind her, barely visible, but there, if you knew what you were looking for, was the distinctive awning of the Serafina Hotel, and reflected in her sunglasses, a distorted but recognizable image of a man's silhouette, a man with Everick Winscott's broad shoulders and characteristic posture. Alina took a screenshot, zooming in until the pixels blurred. It was him. She closed the laptop, her body trembling not with weakness, but with a terrifying crystalline rage. The silent investigation was over. She had the who, the what, the where, the when. She had the proof circumstantial but overwhelming. Now came the question of how. How to use this information. A quiet divorce, a screaming confrontation in their sterile penthouse. No. That was too simple. That would let them control the narrative, paint her as hysterical emotional, the spurned pregnant wife. She thought of Chloe Jensen's public Instagram, her curated life, her carefully constructed image as a rising star in the art world. An image Alina suspected that was funded by her husband. An image that was built on the foundations of her own broken trust. A plan began to form in Alina's mind, cold and intricate as a spider's web. The art world was built on reputation, on authenticity, on the story behind the art. Alina decided she would not just expose the affair. She would turn Chloe's own world against her. She would make the stage for Chloe's greatest triumph, the upcoming Spring Gala at her own gallery, the scene of her utter annihilation. And she would do it in a way that would leave no doubt as to who held the power. For the next 3 weeks, Alina played the part of her life. She was the serene, glowing mother-to-be. She discussed nursery colors with Everick, allowed him to rest his hand on her stomach, to feel the baby kick, and smiled lovingly at him over dinners at Daniel and Jean-Georges restaurants, where their presence was noted and photographed. She was weaving the final threads of their public image into a tapestry of domestic bliss, knowing she was about to set the entire thing on fire. Indeed, she was a general preparing for battle. Her first move was to secure her flank. She scheduled a discreet lunch with her oldest friend, Beatrice Shaw, a partner at a top-tier divorce law firm. They met at a quiet corner table at La Grenouille, a place so steeped in old-world decorum that no one would dare eavesdrop. "You look radiant, Elle," Beatrice said, her sharp lawyer's eyes missing nothing. "But tired." Alina didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Everick is having an affair." She said it calmly, the words tasting like poison. Beatrice didn't gasp or offer platitudes. She simply nodded, her expression hardening. "Okay," she said. "Tell me everything." Alina laid it all out. The perfume, the hotel receipt, the Amex statements, the CJ art advisory, the photograph from the gala, the Instagram post. She presented her evidence with the dispassionate clarity of a prosecutor. Beatrice listened intently, her fork pausing over her Dover sole. When Alina finished, she took a slow sip of water. "The evidence is compelling but circumstantial. His lawyer, and it will be a shark from a firm like mine, will call it a series of unfortunate coincidences. They'll say you're a hormonal, paranoid pregnant woman." "I know," Alina said, "which is why a quiet confrontation is out of the question. I need something irrefutable, something public." "What are you planning, Alina?" Beatrice asked, a note of concern in her voice. "Don't do anything that could jeopardize your position. The Winscott prenup is notoriously tough." "I read it again last night," Alina replied, her voice steely. "The infidelity clause is specific. It requires indisputable proof of intimate relations. A photograph, a confession. Anything less, and I walk away with a fraction of what I'm entitled to, what our son is entitled to." So you need to trap him, Beatrice stated. Not just him, Alina corrected. Her, Chloe Jensen. He's insulated by layers of wealth and power. She isn't. Her reputation is her only real currency. Alina then laid out her plan, the one that had been crystallizing in her mind for weeks. The annual Chelsea Contemporary Gala was being held at Chloe's gallery in 10 days. Everick and Alina were the chairs of the event, their names printed at the top of the invitation. It was the biggest night of Chloe's professional life. Beatrice's eyes widened as she listened. That's not just a confrontation, Alina. That's a public execution. She built her career on my husband's money and my broken trust, Alina said, her voice devoid of emotion. I'm simply collecting the debt. You'll need more than the Cartier bracelet, Beatrice warned. He could say he bought it as a gift for a client. I know, Alina said. I need something more personal, something unique, and I think I know how to get it. That evening, Everick came home with a gift. It was a large, flat box from Cartier. For the most beautiful mother-to-be in the world, he said, kissing her. Her heart turned to ice, but she smiled. Inside was a stunning diamond necklace. Everick, it's extravagant. Nothing's too extravagant for you, he said, fastening it around her neck. As he did, she feigned a casual curiosity. You know, darling, she began, her tone light. I was thinking about that little art curator, Chloe Jensen, the one from the benefit. She's so ambitious. We should really do something to support her gallery. Perhaps acquire a piece for the new baby's nursery. Everick stiffened, almost imperceptibly. Oh, I don't know, Elle. Abernathy is already complaining about my spending on art. Nonsense, Alina said, turning to face him, her hand on his chest. We're the chairs of her gala. It would be a wonderful gesture. In fact, I was thinking of something special. You know that emerging artist she represents, a sculptor named Antoine Dubois. He does those beautiful minimalist bronze birds, a fledgling for our little fledgling. It's poetic. She was watching his face carefully, a flicker of panic in his eyes. He knew the artist. Of course he did. Let me think about it, he said a little too quickly. It's a busy week. But Alina had planted the seed. Over the next few days, she nurtured it, mentioning the sculptor again, leaving the artist's catalogue on the coffee table. She was baiting a trap, using her knowledge of Everick's desire to please her, or at least to appear to please her, as the lure. 4 days before the gala, her bait was taken. A courier from the Chloe Jensen Gallery delivered a purchase agreement to the penthouse. It was for a unique bronze sculpture by Antoine Dubois, the fledgling's first flight. The price was a staggering $75,000. It was a ridiculously expensive piece for a nursery, a clear attempt by Everick to appease both his wife and his mistress with a single grand gesture. But Alina's focus was on the document itself. The purchase was made by Winscott Innovations, but the signatory at the bottom approving the acquisition on behalf of the gallery was Chloe Jensen, and scribbled in the margin in Everick's unmistakable handwriting was a short note, Chloe. Thanks for making this happen. A beautiful piece for a beautiful new beginning. J. He must have reviewed and signed it at her gallery. The note was meant for Chloe, a private message hidden on a business document he assumed Alina would never see. It was careless. It was arrogant. And it was exactly the proof she needed. A beautiful new beginning. The words echoed in her mind with venomous irony. He wasn't talking about their baby. He was talking about his new life, a life with Chloe funded by his marital assets. This note, combined with the other evidence, transformed a circumstantial case into a damning indictment. Alina carefully photographed the document with her phone. Then she placed the original in a fireproof safe alongside her passport and the baby's birth plan. The final piece of her plan involved her appearance. She called her personal stylist, a flamboyant man named Stefan. "Stefan, darling," she said, "the Chelsea Gala. I need a dress, but not one of my usuals. I don't want to look like a wife. I want to look like a widow. A very rich, very powerful widow." Stefan, intrigued, was silent for a moment. "I have the perfect thing," he said finally. "Valentino. It's black, severe, and utterly magnificent. It will make you look untouchable." "Perfect," Alina said. "Untouchable is exactly what I'm going for." The day of the gala arrived. As she had her hair and makeup done, a sense of calm settled over her. Everick was in his study, taking calls, oblivious. He thought this night was about celebrating art. He had no idea it was about to become his personal judgment day. As they rode down in the elevator, Everick looked at her. Truly. Looked at her for the first time in weeks. The black Valentino gown was a masterpiece of stark elegance, clinging to her bump in a way that was both maternal and formidable. The Cartier diamond necklace he'd just given her was a cold fire at her throat. "Wow, Elle," he said, genuinely impressed. "You look breathtaking, absolutely lethal." Alina met his gaze in the mirrored elevator walls, a small, cold smile playing on her lips. "I'm so glad you think so, darling," she said. "You have no idea." The Chloe Jensen Gallery in Chelsea was electric. The air buzzed with the chatter of art collectors, critics, socialites, and hangers-on, all bathed in the soft glow of expertly placed track lighting. Waiters in crisp white jackets moved silently through the crowd, balancing trays of champagne and canapés. The space, usually a quiet white box for contemplation, had been transformed into a theater of social ambition. And tonight, Chloe Jensen was its star. She stood near the entrance, radiant in a shimmering silver gown that clung to her slender frame. She was the picture of success, greeting guests with a dazzling smile, her voice confident as she discussed the art on her walls. Her dark hair was swept up in an elegant chignon, revealing the sparkle of a familiar gold bracelet on her wrist. The Cartier love bracelet. When Everick and Alina Winscott arrived, a hush fell over the room, followed by a wave of sycophantic greetings. They were the main event, the patrons, the king and queen of this glittering affair. "Chloe, you've done a magnificent job," Everick said, beaming, placing a proprietary hand on the small of her back for a fraction of a second too long. "The gallery looks incredible." "Everick, Alina, thank you so much for coming, and for everything," Chloe said, her eyes flicking to Alina's baby bump. "Alina, you look absolutely stunning. Motherhood suits you." The compliment was delivered with flawless sincerity, but Alina could see the flicker of triumph in her eyes, the look of a woman who believed she had won. "Thank you, Chloe," Alina replied, her voice placid, betraying none of the tempest raging within her. "It's a special night. I have a feeling it's one we'll all remember for a very long time." She let her eyes drift meaningfully down to the Cartier bracelet on Chloe's wrist before meeting her gaze again. For the first time, Chloe's smile faltered just for a moment. Alina allowed Everick to guide her through the crowd. She played her part with an Oscar-worthy performance, smiling, making small talk about the art, accepting congratulations on the baby. She spoke with the art critic from the New York Times, chatted with a hedge fund manager who was a major collector, and exchanged pleasantries with the wives of Everick's business partners. Every interaction was a strategic move, reinforcing her status, her grace, her position as the unassailable Mrs. Winscott. She saw Everick and Chloe speaking near a large brutalist sculpture. Their heads were close together. He laughed at something she said, and she touched his arm. It was a gesture of casual intimacy, but to Alina, it was a lit fuse. She saw Marcus Thorne, Everick's loyal right-hand man, watching them from across the room with a look of deep unease. He knew. Of course he knew. An hour into the event, the gallery director, a nervous man named Philip, tapped a microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please." The crowd quieted down. Philip launched into a speech about the importance of new artists and thanked the gallery's supporters. "And now," he concluded, "it is my great honor to introduce the chair of tonight's gala, a woman of impeccable taste and a true champion of the arts, Mrs. Alina Winscott." A polite round of applause filled the gallery. This was the moment. Everick, standing beside her, squeezed her hand. "You'll be great, honey." Alina walked to the small lectern set up in the center of the room. She adjusted the microphone, her eyes sweeping over the sea of expectant faces. She saw Chloe standing near the front, looking proud proprietary. She saw Everick watching her with a placid, supportive smile. She saw the society photographers, their lenses trained on her. She began, her voice calm and clear, resonating through the silent gallery. "Good evening," she said. "Thank you, Philip. It's an honor to be here tonight, surrounded by so much creativity and passion. When we look at the art on these walls, we are asked to consider its meaning, its story. We are asked to value its authenticity." She paused, letting the word hang in the air. Authenticity. It's a quality we prize in art, isn't it? We want to know that what we are seeing is real, that the story it tells is a true one. A forgery, no matter how skillfully executed, is ultimately worthless. Its value is a lie. A few people nodded thoughtfully. Everick's smile remained fixed. Chloe looked on a picture of rapt attention. "Tonight," Alina continued, her voice gaining a harder edge, "I want to tell you a story about acquisition and value, a story about a very valuable collection that was compromised." The atmosphere in the room began to shift. The polite smiles on people's faces were replaced by looks of intense curiosity. This was not the standard bland speech of a wealthy patron's wife. "Imagine a collector," Alina said, her eyes never leaving Chloe's face. "A collector who spent years building a life's work. A partnership. It was a rare and beautiful collection built on trust, history, and shared dreams. But then a new piece was added. A piece that on the surface looked exquisite, young, ambitious, shiny." Everick's smile had now vanished. A look of confusion, then dawning horror, replaced it. He started to take a step forward, but Marcus Thorne, standing nearby, put a subtle hand on his arm, holding him back. "This new piece," Alina's voice dropped, becoming more intimate, more venomous, was acquired through deceit. It was paid for with stolen funds. Not stolen from a bank, but stolen from the heart of the original collection. Stolen trust. Stolen time. Stolen promises. The crowd was utterly silent, captivated. People were exchanging nervous glances. They knew this was no longer a metaphor. "This new acquisition," Alina went on, "liked to display itself. It loved to be seen in all the best places, wearing beautiful things bought with someone else's resources. It wore, for instance, a very specific piece of jewelry, a symbol of love, ironically. A Cartier love bracelet, let's say. A gift that was a copy of a promise made to another." She flicked her eyes to Chloe's wrist. Chloe instinctively pulled her hand back, a flash of pure panic in her eyes. The crowd followed Alina's gaze. A collective silent gasp seemed to ripple through the room. But a bracelet isn't enough, is it? It's circumstantial, Alina said, her voice dripping with scorn. For true authenticity, you need provenance. You need documentation. She reached into the small, elegant clutch she was carrying. She pulled out her phone. With a few taps, she projected a high-resolution image onto the large white wall behind the lectern, the very wall that had moments before been displaying a looping video of the gallery's artists. On the wall, for everyone to see, was the photograph she had taken of the purchase agreement for the bronze sculpture. And there, magnified to an enormous size, was Everett's handwriting. Chloe. Thanks for making this happen. A beautiful piece for a beautiful new beginning. J. The silence in the gallery was shattered. It was absolute, profound, and devastating. Every eye was on the wall, then on Everett, whose face had gone ashen white, and then on Chloe, whose face was a mask of disbelief and terror. Alina let the image hang there for 10 long seconds. Then she turned her full attention to the woman who had tried to steal her life. Chloe Jensen, Alina said, her voice ringing with the clarity of a bell. As the curator of this gallery, a place you claim is dedicated to truth and beauty. I have one question for you. This beautiful new beginning my husband wrote about, does it feel beautiful now? Does it feel authentic? She paused, her final blow delivered with the precision of a surgeon. And that very expensive sculpture, the fledgling's first flight, paid for by my family's assets to be a gift for my son. Where did you plan to display it? The silence that followed Alina's final question was not empty. It was a physical presence, a dense, heavy blanket that smothered all sound and movement in the gallery. The low hum of the ventilation system, previously unnoticed, now roared in the stillness. The clink of an ice cube in a forgotten glass sounded like a gunshot. For a full, agonizing 10 seconds, the entire New York art scene held its collective breath. Every eye was locked on the tableau of ruin, the damning words projected on the wall. The ashen face of the billionaire and the woman at the center of the storm, Chloe Jensen. Chloe stood as if she had been turned to stone, the silver of her gown seeming to lose its luster under the harsh glare of the projector. The confident smile she had worn all night was gone, replaced by a slack-jawed mask of pure terror. In her mind, a frantic, screaming denial was trying to form, but no sound would come out. She could feel hundreds of pairs of eyes on her eyes that had admired her, envied her, desired her just minutes ago, now dissecting her with the cold curiosity of a lynch mob. The first sound to break the spell was a small, choked gasp from Chloe's own throat. Her mind, finally catching up to the reality of her public execution, began to scramble for a defense. No, she managed, her voice a thin, reedy whisper that barely carried past the first row of spectators. It's a misunderstanding. It's not what it looks like. The denial was so feeble, so utterly inadequate in the face of the colossal evidence on the wall that it was met with a new sound, a low, vicious murmur that rippled through the crowd. It was the sound of judgment being passed. People who had been air-kissing her cheek an hour before were now whispering her name with contempt, their expressions a cocktail of morbid glee and feigned pity. She could hear snippets sharp as shards of glass. The audacity! Right in front of his pregnant wife. Her career is over. Everett, who had been paralyzed by a tidal wave of shock and adrenaline, finally broke free. His image, his control, his entire world was slipping away. He stumbled forward, his movements clumsy, his face slick with sweat. Alina, he croaked, his voice thick with a desperation she had never heard before. He reached a hand toward her, an instinctive gesture to stop the bleeding. "Stop this. Please. We can talk about this at home." Alina turned her head slowly, regarding her husband, not with the pain of a betrayed wife, but with the detached clinical appraisal of a scientist studying a specimen under a microscope. Her gaze swept over him from his expensive disheveled suit to his panicked eyes, and in that one look, she dismissed him entirely. "Home." She repeated the single word, dripping with a contempt so profound it made several people flinch. "Are you referring to the penthouse at 15 Central Park West? The one whose purchase was finalized with funds from my family's trust? The home where I am currently preparing a nursery for my son?" She took a deliberate step back from his outstretched hand. "That home is no longer yours, Everick. You forfeited your right to call it that. You are no longer welcome in it." She turned her back on him completely, a gesture of absolute finality. It was as if he had ceased to exist. She faced the stunned crowd again, her posture radiating an untouchable, almost regal authority. "My sincerest apologies for this interruption to the evening's festivities," she announced, her voice ringing with clarity and control. "Please consider my family's 7-figure donation to this gallery and any other financial arrangements with its curator officially and immediately rescinded." She paused, letting the financial blow land. "I do hope you all enjoy the rest of the champagne. I imagine some of you," her eyes flickered one last time to Chloe, "might find you suddenly have a great need for it." With that final devastating pronouncement, Alina turned and walked away from the lectern. She didn't flee. She made a calculated, graceful exit. The sea of guests parted for her, their awe and fear palpable. Men and women who commanded boardrooms and ran hedge funds shrank back, unwilling to meet the gaze of this woman who had just demonstrated such a terrifying capacity for strategic destruction. It was the sight of Alina's retreating back, poised, powerful, victorious, that finally shattered the last vestiges of Chloe's control. The spell was broken, and raw, primal hysteria erupted in its place. "He told me it was over." The shriek tore from Chloe's throat, raw and ragged, stripped of all its practiced sophistication. All heads swiveled back to her. "He lied to me. He said you were living separate lives. He said the marriage was a business arrangement. Nothing more." She whirled on Everick, her finger pointing, her face contorted with a mixture of rage and agony. "You told me you loved me. You told me we had a future, a beautiful new beginning. You wrote, you coward, you liar." The photographers, who had been frozen in a state of professional disbelief, suddenly erupted into a frenzy. The sound of their shutters was a percussive, predatory clicking. The flashes, a series of strobing explosions that illuminated Chloe's tear-streaked face and Everick's pathetic, trapped expression. They were capturing her complete and utter annihilation for the morning editions. Overwhelmed, humiliated, and utterly alone, Chloe's body gave out. With a gut-wrenching wail, she sank to her knees, the sound of her kneecaps hitting the polished concrete floor, audible in the sudden quiet. Her shimmering silver gown, a symbol of her supposed triumph, pooled around her like a shroud. The breakdown was absolute. She covered her face with her hands, her body convulsing with ugly, gasping sobs that echoed in the cathedral-like space of her ruined gallery. Outside, Alina stepped into the cool, clean air of the Chelsea night. The frantic sounds from within Chloe's hysterics. Everick's pathetic attempts at damage control, the machine gun fire of the cameras, were muffled as the heavy glass door swung shut behind her. A black Lincoln town car, summoned by Beatrice a half-hour earlier in a perfectly timed maneuver, pulled silently to the curb. The driver held the door. Before she got in, Alina paused. She reached up and unclasped the heavy Cartier diamond necklace Everick had given her as a pathetic preemptive apology. It felt cold and heavy in her palm. It was a lie, made tangible, a bribe for her silence. She looked at the glittering, flawless stones, and then at a grime-streaked public trash can chained to a lamp-post a few feet away. With a calm, deliberate motion, she let the necklace slide from her hand. It fell into the darkness of the bin, with a soft final clatter against a discarded bottle. A fortune in diamonds discarded like trash. It was her last act of severance, a quiet ritual of purification. As the car pulled smoothly into traffic, Alina leaned her head back against the cool leather. She didn't feel the thrill of victory or the satisfaction of revenge. She felt a profound and desolate clarity. The feeling of a surgeon after a long and brutal but necessary operation. The cancer had been excised, the wound was deep, and the recovery would be long. But she had done it. She had taken back her life, her story, her name. The rebuilding could now begin. The morning after the gala, New York City awoke to a feast of scandal. It was a story perfectly engineered for the digital age, wealth, sex, betrayal, and a very public immolation. The image of Chloe Jensen on her knees, a portrait of utter devastation, was the lead photo on every news site. The New York Post, in its typical gleeful savagery, ran the picture full page under the headline, "Billionaires Bust Up." The Times was more reserved, framing it as a shake-up in the city's philanthropic circles. But the implication was just as damning. On social media, the hashtag #Galagore trended for 36 straight hours. Alina experienced the explosion not as a participant, but as a distant, dispassionate observer. She was already gone. By dawn, she was at her family's ancestral estate in Southampton, a sprawling, shingle-style mansion buffered from the world by acres of windswept dunes and ancient oak trees. Here the only sounds were the cry of gulls and the rhythmic crash of the Atlantic. Her mother, a woman of quiet fortitude and iron will, managed the flow of information. She answered the calls, deflected the press, and brought Alina tea and broth, speaking only of the baby. Alina didn't look at the news. She didn't need to. She had authored the story. She knew how it would read. There was no triumph in her, only a vast, cold emptiness where her marriage used to be. The rage that had fueled her for weeks had burned out, leaving behind the hard, clean clarity of ash. She walked the private beach, her hand resting on her belly, feeling the kicks of her son. The only truth that mattered. She had raised her life to the ground to protect him, to give him a foundation that wasn't built on lies. This quiet shore was the beginning of that foundation. For Everick, there was no such sanctuary. He woke up alone in the cavernous penthouse, the silence amplifying the frantic ringing of his phone. He stumbled out of bed, his head pounding the events of the night before, replaying in a sickening loop of shame and disbelief. A glance at his tablet confirmed his worst fears. His face, pale and horrified, was next to Chloe's weeping one. He was a meme, a punchline, a villain in a drama he could no longer control. His first dozen calls to Alina went straight to a disconnected number. His texts vanished into a digital void. He then called her mother, a woman he had always found intimidating. The conversation was brief. "She doesn't wish to speak with you, Everick," Mrs. Astor said, her voice like chipping ice. "All future communication will be handled by her counsel." The line went dead. Panic gave way to a desperate, clawing rage. How could she do this? To him? To them? He paced the marble floors of the home she had already spiritually abandoned, his world shrinking with every headline, every missed call. For Chloe Jensen, the fallout was not a distant storm, but a direct hit. The paparazzi were a permanent fixture outside her Soho apartment building. Her phone was a torrent of abuse and professional ruin. The first email, which arrived at 7:01 a.m., was from her gallery's primary investor, a man who had praised her vision just a week earlier. The message was terse, citing a moral turpitude clause in their contract, and immediately withdrawing all funding. Then came the artists one by one, their representatives sending polite but firm notices, severing their ties. Her landlord for the gallery space issued a notice of default on her lease. Within 48 hours, the Chloe Jensen Gallery, her entire identity existed only as a ghost on an abandoned website. She was a pariah radioactive. A week later, Everick was summoned to an emergency board meeting at the Winscott Innovations Tower. He walked into the 50th floor boardroom, a place where he was usually met with deference and awe, to find a dozen stone-faced board members waiting for him. There was no anger in their eyes, which was worse. There was only cold financial calculation. "The stock is down 12%, Everick," said the chairman, a grim elder statesman of finance. "The markets don't care about your personal life. They care about stability and judgment. You have shown a catastrophic lack of both." He wasn't fired. That would be too messy an admission of defeat. Instead, he was strongly advised to take an indefinite leave of absence to focus on his family. It was a public neutering. He was stripped of his operational control, his parking space, his access card. As he left the building, he saw employees whispering, averting their eyes. He had become a ghost in his own empire. The legal battle that followed was brief and brutal. Everick hired Silas Lynch, a lawyer known for his scorched earth tactics. Lynch's first letter to Alina's counsel was full of bluster, threatening to paint her as emotionally unstable and vindictive. Beatrice Shaw's reply arrived by courier the next day. It was elegantly simple. It contained a formal petition for divorce, citing the prenuptial's infidelity clause. Attached to it was a single glossy printout of the New York Post cover. At the bottom, Beatrice had written in black ink, Exhibit A. Lynch, undeterred, fired back that a tabloid photo was not indisputable proof. Beatrice's final response was even shorter. A single-sentence email sent to Lynch's personal address. "We look forward to deposing Miss Jensen under oath." That was the kill shot. The prospect of Chloe Jensen on a witness stand, forced to recount every detail of the affair for public record. The hotel rooms, the art advisory payments, the gifts, the promises would create a second, even more damaging media firestorm. It would be a circus from which Everick's reputation and the company's stock price might never recover. Silas Lynch called Everick. "It's over," he said, all the fight gone from his voice. "Give her whatever she wants." 2 months after the gala, as the city's heat gave way to the crispness of early autumn, Alina gave birth in a private wing of a Southampton hospital. She held her son, a tiny, perfect creature with a fuzz of dark hair, and felt the last of the cold ash within her wash away. She named him Theodore Astor. Theodore, gift of God, and Astor, her name, her family, her strength. He would carry a legacy of resilience, not scandal. The divorce was settled with quiet, ruthless efficiency. Alina's demands were non-negotiable. She received the penthouse at 15 Central Park West, a tactical acquisition she intended to sell, cleansing herself of its memories. More importantly, she took a significant non-voting share of Winscott Innovations. It wasn't just about the money. It was about power. It tethered her to the company, permanently ensuring that for the rest of his life, a portion of Everett's success would flow directly to the family he abandoned. It was a constant, galling reminder of his loss, etched into his corporate filings. Everett was left a man hollowed out. He was still a billionaire, but he was diminished, a cautionary tale whispered at cocktail parties. He eventually returned to his role as CEO, but the magic was gone. He was cautious, scrutinized, haunted. His visitation rites with Theodore were a bi-weekly exercise in sterile formality, supervised by a nanny in the grand living room of a home that felt alien to him. He would hold his son, this small stranger who carried his features but not his name, and feel the profound, unbridgeable chasm he had created. Alina conversely remade herself. A year after the birth, she sold the penthouse for a record-breaking sum and bought a magnificent sun-drenched brownstone on the Upper East Side. She re-emerged into public life not as a Winscott, but as Alina Astor, a formidable power in her own right. She established the Astor Foundation, a charity dedicated to supporting single mothers and funding female artists who lacked institutional support. It was her final, perfect act of defiance, transforming the very tools of her betrayal into instruments of empowerment for other women. She was photographed at benefits, poised and radiant, sometimes with Theodore on her hip. She never spoke of the scandal. She never had to. In the ruins of her marriage, Alina had built an empire of her own, one founded not on polished surfaces and deceit, but on unshakable authentic strength. She had taken a story of humiliation and rewritten it as an epic of survival. And so the curtain falls on the Winscott, a story of love, lies, and the ultimate public revenge. Alina Winscott proved that a woman's pain can be forged into a weapon, and that a reputation once shattered can never truly be repaired. She didn't just win a divorce, she won the war, for her own narrative emerging not as a victim, but as an icon of strength. But what do you think? Was Alina's public takedown a brilliant act of empowerment or a cruel spectacle that went too far? Was Chloe a willing homewrecker or another victim of Everett's manipulation? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, if you were captivated by this story of real-life drama. Make sure to hit that like button. Share this video with someone who loves a good story, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel. We bring you the most compelling dramatic stories every week, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Have you ever wondered how one scandalous leak could destroy an entire empire overnight? Picture this. A stunning millionaire, revered as a philanthropic tycoon, and his radiant pregnant wife, seemingly the perfect power couple. But beneath the glossy photographs and luxurious charity galas, dark secrets simmer. When an explosive video surfaces online, revealing her husband's steamy affair, the pregnant wife doesn't crumble in silence. Instead, she steps into the blinding lights of a press conference, shocking the world and obliterating his career in a single heartbeat. Get ready for a tale of betrayal, resilience, and a downfall so swift it will leave you breathless. Ava Carmichael first met Oliver Carmichael at a fundraiser for the Wilson Children's Hospital in Chicago. Oliver was the guest of honor, a self-made millionaire who had gained national fame after selling his tech startup to Google for a fortune rumored to be in the hundreds of millions. Ava, then a junior event planner, was charged with ensuring the evening ran smoothly. From the moment she locked eyes with him across the packed ballroom, her world shifted. He approached her with a gentle smile and an outstretched hand. Polite conversation turned into an exchange of dreams and life goals. The chemistry between them was electric. Oliver, charming yet aloof, was drawn to Ava's warm-hearted nature and pragmatic approach to life. Their whirlwind romance made headlines in society pages when Oliver took Ava to a private island in the Caribbean. Photos of them strolling barefoot on a secluded beach landed in People magazine, and whispers of an engagement soon surfaced in tabloids. By the time he proposed under a canopy of twinkling fairy lights in front of 1,000 roses, Ava was head over heels. The wedding was a grand affair at the historic Drake Hotel, with the CEO of Morgan Stanley among the guests, and a performance by a famous R&B singer that Oliver secretly flew in. Their union was hailed as a modern fairy tale, the philanthropic tech millionaire, and the compassionate event planner uniting their energies to make the world a better place. But in every fairy tale lurks a moment of darkness, and for Ava and Oliver, it was just around the corner. A year after their lavish wedding, Ava discovered she was pregnant. The news filled the Carmichael mansion with excitement. Oliver appeared overjoyed. He'd often spoken of wanting a large family, and Ava was ecstatic to finally be starting that journey with him. They announced the pregnancy during a red carpet charity gala benefiting children with rare diseases. Ava wore a flowing emerald green gown that discreetly showed off a blossoming baby bump. When she and Oliver stepped onto the stage, the entire crowd erupted in applause. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment Oliver placed a tender hand on Ava's stomach. Soon after, local outlets like the Chicago Tribune covered the Carmichael baby buzz, praising Oliver for his ongoing philanthropic endeavors. A short feature on NBC's Today Show hinted that the Carmichaels might become America's new it couple. Ava was flattered, albeit slightly overwhelmed by the sudden attention. Behind the scenes, however, something was off. Oliver had become more distant, engrossed in late-night phone calls and cryptic text messages. When Ava asked about them, he brushed her concerns aside with practiced ease. "It's just business, sweetheart." She tried to believe him. After all, she knew the burden of running a multi-million-dollar conglomerate was enormous. But as her belly grew, so did her suspicions. Faint clues, the lingering trace of unfamiliar perfume on his collar. A second phone he never let her see gnawed at her peace of mind. Still, Ava reassured herself that any man under immense pressure could behave evasively. She clung to hope that once their baby arrived, Oliver would slow down and refocus on their family. Little did she know the cracks forming in their marriage were about to split wide open. With each passing week of her pregnancy, Ava noticed that Oliver's schedule became more erratic. Some nights he would rush through dinner offering half-hearted compliments about her cooking and then dash off to emergency meetings. Other times he'd claim to be traveling for business expansions, leaving Ava alone in their expansive mansion, the echo of her own footsteps, a constant reminder of her isolation. What truly unsettled Ava was the subtle shift in Oliver's demeanor. He was no longer the attentive husband who'd once tracked down her favorite bakery an hour away to bring her freshly baked croissants. Instead, he seemed perpetually preoccupied, scrolling his phone under the dinner table, offering only partial attention to Ava's excited updates about the baby's kicks. In an attempt to distract herself from mounting worries, Ava threw herself into philanthropic work. She organized a fundraiser for hurricane relief, collaborating with real-life crisis manager and PR expert Liz White, a name well known in Chicago's elite circles for orchestrating big fundraising galas. Liz noticed Ava's tense smile and asked if everything was okay at home. Ava merely shrugged it off with a practiced grin. Little did Ava know Liz would soon become more than just a professional acquaintance. Liz's skill in handling scandals and public image crises would be invaluable when the Carmichael family's private pain exploded onto the public stage. For now, Ava remained clueless about the danger simmering beneath the surface. She believed the biggest concern she faced was coaxing Oliver to show up on time for doctor's appointments, but in the hush of her mind, a quiet fear took root. If Oliver was pushing her away, who or what was he pulling closer? Ava never considered herself a snoop. She valued privacy and believed that trust was the bedrock of any strong relationship. But as uncertainty haunted her nights, she found herself unable to resist the urge to peek into Oliver's world. One evening, when Oliver announced yet another urgent meeting and sped off in his car, Ava was left in the large, empty mansion, feeling the baby stir inside her. The sense of foreboding was unbearable. She walked into his home office, a spacious, modern study lined with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Her eyes landed on his desktop computer, which glowed with a faint screensaver. With trembling hands, she jiggled the mouse. To her surprise, no password prompt appeared. The desktop opened immediately to an email account. A pang of guilt clutched her, but desperation drove her to click. Most messages were innocuous business correspondences, but a name caught her eye. Miranda Devereaux, a high-profile interior designer from New York. Ava recalled Oliver mentioning Miranda once, someone he was hiring for a new condo project. She clicked on the email thread and found an exchange of flirtatious notes, culminating in a few short video clips. Heart pounding. Ava hesitated before opening them. The first clip showed Oliver at a hotel bar, with Miranda leaning in intimately. The second clip was longer security camera footage from the hotel corridor. It showed Oliver and Miranda entering a suite together late at night, arms wrapped around each other. A wave of nausea overwhelmed Ava, nearly overshadowing the usual pregnancy queasiness. Without a second thought, she pressed forward and sent the emails and clips to herself. She had seen enough, and her world would never be the same again. Oliver returned well past midnight, reeking of expensive cologne. The moment he stepped inside, Ava's tears were already running down her cheeks. She waited for him in the living room. The lights dimmed to a cold glow. Her hands gripped her phone, the forwarded videos ready to play at any second. Ava, he called, visibly startled by her tear-streaked face. "What's wrong?" She didn't bother with niceties. Heart pounding, she pressed play on her phone, letting the damning footage speak for itself. The room filled with the muffled sounds of Oliver's laughter in that hotel corridor, Miranda's figure clinging to his arm. Oliver's eyes widened, a flicker of panic crossing his usually controlled features. He reached for the phone. "Where did you get this?" he demanded, voice tight. Ava yanked it away, raw hurt radiating in her gaze. "So it's true," she breathed. "You've been cheating on me. With her." At first, Oliver tried to deny it. Words like misunderstanding and business acquaintance tumbled from his mouth. But the evidence was incontrovertible. Finally, he sank onto the sofa, running a hand through his hair. It was just once, he muttered, eyes downcast. "A mistake. You have to believe me." Ava's indignation flared. "A mistake. You've been emailing her for months, from what I can see." "Don't lie to me, Oliver. Not now." He bowed his head, too ashamed or too trapped to continue. Furious tears streamed down Ava's face, and she felt the baby kick within her, a cruel reminder of the life she carried, the future she was trying to protect. In that instant, the fairy tale they'd built shattered into pieces, leaving Ava with only heartbreak and betrayal. Ava spent the night in the guest bedroom, barely sleeping. Every time she closed her eyes, the images of Oliver with Miranda replayed like a cruel nightmare. By dawn, she felt hollowed out, yet beneath the grief grew a potent anger she had never experienced before. Before Oliver left for work the next day, she confronted him in the kitchen. She was still in her pajamas, hair disheveled, a world away from the poised socialite she'd become known as in Chicago's charity circuit. "End it," Ava demanded, voice quivering with anger. "Break it off with Miranda for good, and tell the press you're stepping down from the Devereaux project, and you'll be going to marriage counseling with me." Oliver looked at her for a long moment. He seemed more fatigued than she had ever seen him. "I'll end it, Ava," he promised, exhaling sharply. "I don't want to lose our family." The words should have comforted her, but they didn't. The betrayal ran too deep. "I'm pregnant with your child, Oliver. Do you even understand what this stress is doing to me, to our baby?" His silence spoke louder than any defense he could muster. He offered a half-hearted nod before leaving. Ava watched him go, unsure if she had just saved their marriage or delayed its collapse. Though she demanded a swift end to his infidelity, a haunting question nagged at her. Could trust ever be fully repaired once it was broken? Little did she know the storm was only beginning, and a single promise from Oliver would do little to protect them from the catastrophe that awaited. Unable to bear the suffocating loneliness of the mansion, Ava sought solace with her closest friend, Delilah Pierce. They met at a cozy neighborhood cafe, where Delilah arrived with open arms and a wave of concern evident in her eyes. In hushed tones, Ava recounted the entire saga from the suspicious late nights to the damning hotel footage. Delilah listened occasionally, clutching Ava's hand, her coffee growing cold. "I always had a bad feeling about Oliver's constant business trips," she admitted, a note of regret in her voice. "I'm sorry I never brought it up." Ava found some measure of comfort in Delilah's empathy. "I feel so stupid," she said, tears threatening to spill once more. "How could I not see it sooner?" Delilah gave Ava's hand a firm squeeze. "Don't blame yourself. Oliver's the one who made this choice. You're carrying his child. You deserved better." Over the next hour, Delilah offered unwavering support, suggesting therapy resources and even offering to help Ava prepare for any potential legal issues. "You have to protect yourself, especially with the baby on the way. I know a great lawyer, Samantha Holden, who handled my cousin's messy divorce, just in case." Though the mention of a lawyer made Ava's stomach churn, she recognized the importance of covering all her bases. As they parted ways, Delilah vowed to stand by her side through the ordeal, no matter how ugly it got. Walking back to her car, Ava felt slightly less isolated, but the protective bubble of friendship could only do so much. She would have to face the storm head-on, whether Oliver kept his promise or not. A few days later, the hush of early morning was shattered by Ava's phone, buzzing relentlessly on the bedside table. She groggily picked it up to see dozens of messages and missed calls. Her heart pounded. Could something have happened to Oliver? But as she opened social media, dread coiled in her stomach. A gossip account with thousands of followers had posted a scandalous blind item about a tech mogul with a pregnant wife caught in an affair with a New York socialite. The post included grainy stills from the very hotel footage Ava had discovered, though faces were blurred. Her phone exploded with notifications, friends, acquaintances, even random strangers wanting details. Overwhelmed, Ava felt the baby move as though sensing the turmoil. She quickly turned off her phone, tears stinging her eyes. In a panic, she rushed downstairs to find Oliver. He was in his office phone, pressed to his ear, shouting into the receiver. She overheard him say, "I don't care what it costs, just kill the story," before slamming the phone down. their gazes locked. Ava's heart sank at the desperation etched across his features. "Someone leaked it?" she asked, voice trembling. He nodded grimly. "Yes, but we can't be certain who. It might be someone from the hotel staff or someone else." He shot her a look, as if suspecting she had shared the video. Ava bristled, stepping back. "Do you really think I'd do that? You promised to end this, Oliver." "Now look what's happening." Guilt flashed across his face, replaced almost instantly by defensiveness. "We need to put out a statement denying everything. My entire career could be on the line." Ava swallowed hard. She wasn't ready for the media circus, but it was already knocking at their door. Their once private nightmare was about to go very, very public. Oliver scrambled to manage the crisis, summoning his high-profile PR team, led by the formidable Kate Winthrop, a specialist in damage control for celebrity and corporate scandals. Within hours, she arrived at the Carmichael mansion, with a flurry of assistants' laptops and a meticulously organized crisis management plan. "We're dealing with an unverified leak," Kate said briskly. "We have two primary strategies: deny or deflect. If we deny, you risk fueling the rumor mill. If we deflect, we might direct attention elsewhere, but it has to be believable." Oliver paced the room, raking a hand through his hair. "What about claiming these images are doctored? That this is just an attempt to undermine my philanthropic work?" Kate's expression remained neutral. "We can try that, but the pictures look too authentic. And if more footage surfaces, we'll be caught lying." Ava observed the meeting from a corner, her mind swirling. She felt like a spectator at the unveiling of her own heartbreak, reduced to a mere prop in Oliver's PR strategy. As talk of hush money and NDAs swirled, she felt the baby kick a stark reminder that this crisis was not just about reputations, but the future of her family. Eventually, Oliver turned to her. "Ava, I need you to stand by my side. We have to present a united front." His words were a bitter pill. She recalled his promise to end the affair. Yet here they were, strategizing about half-truths and misdirection. Ava thought of the unborn child, of the intense scrutiny they would soon face. With shaky resolve, she nodded. She hated the idea of lying to the public, but she also couldn't bear the thought of the scandal smashing their life to bits. She had no idea that the worst was still to come. Even as Oliver's PR team prepared an official statement labeling the footage misleading and maliciously edited, a new crisis brewed behind the scenes. Miranda Devereaux. The woman at the center of the scandal refused to quietly fade away. Instead, she began making demands of her own. One evening, Oliver returned home from an emergency meeting with Miranda's lawyers. Ava watched his strained face as he poured himself a stiff drink. "She's threatening to release a full statement," he muttered. "Claims she's got text messages, voice memos, everything. She wants compensation, or she'll go public." Ava felt an icy dread settle in her stomach. If Miranda released more evidence, the shallow denials being fed to the media would crumble instantly. "So what are you going to do?" she asked, voice tight. Oliver's silence was telling. He tossed back his drink before answering. "We're negotiating. She wants a huge sum, plus some endorsement deals for her design business. It's extortion, basically." The thought of Oliver paying off Miranda made Ava's skin crawl. "And you're seriously considering it?" He ran a hand over his face. "If it means saving my reputation, yes. You don't understand what's at stake. Our philanthropic work, my investments, people rely on me. If I go down, a lot of people will be hurt." For a split second, Ava wondered if Miranda was truly the villain here. After all, she hadn't vowed to be faithful. Oliver had. the line between right and wrong blurred beneath the weight of scandal, greed, and betrayal. In that moment, Ava realized that Oliver's talk of saving his reputation might overshadow his concern for their marriage or the innocent child they were bringing into a world of lies. Waking up to relentless texts and calls from acquaintances, Ava found her anxiety hitting new heights. Even visits to her OB/GYN became fraught with tension as she feared being recognized and judged. Everywhere she went, it felt like eyes were on her, analyzing the scandal. Social media was ablaze with speculation. A few brave tabloids even claimed to have exclusive new evidence pending release. The constant swirl of rumors left Ava hollow and exhausted. Did half of Chicago already assume Oliver was cheating? Did they pity her, or worse, mock her for staying alone in her bedroom? Ava scrolled through her phone, scanning social media. She came across a tweet from Anderson Cooper, a real-life figure known for calling out hypocrisy on his CNN segments, commenting generally about the moral failings of the wealthy and powerful. Although it didn't mention Oliver by name, the timing was suspiciously pointed. She felt a spike of anxiety. Ava found herself questioning everything she thought she knew. How many times had Oliver lied? Was he truly remorseful or just scrambling to hide his tracks? And what if Miranda wasn't the only affair? The seeds of doubt took root, thriving in the soil of shattered trust. One thing became undeniable. If this story escalated further, Oliver's polished facade would collapse. The philanthropic golden boy would be exposed as a fraud, and Ava would be caught in the crossfire. For the sake of her baby, she had to find a way to protect herself, even if it meant going against the man she had once adored. Just as Kate Winthrop and her crisis team finalized a hopefully worded statement for Oliver to deliver, the bomb dropped. Late one evening, a popular YouTube channel called City Secrets Unmasked posted the unedited high-definition version of the hotel footage. This time, the camera angle was clear as day. Oliver's face was unmistakable, laughing, leaning in, whispering to Miranda, before disappearing into a room. Within minutes, the video was trending. National outlets picked it up, and Twitter erupted with the hashtag Carmichael Scandal. Oliver's name soared to the top of search engines, overshadowing even major political news. Ava watched the chaos unfold from the living room television, the baby's weight pressing on her ribs as if in response to her stress. She felt an overwhelming desire to flee, to escape the relentless spotlight. But this was her life. There was nowhere to hide from the digital mob. Within hours, the Carmichael mansion was besieged by paparazzi. Some had the audacity to shout questions about her pregnancy, insinuating that the unborn child might not even be Oliver's. Ava gasped at the cruelty. The speculation stung like an open wound. Oliver was unreachable, holed up in his corporate office downtown, bombarded by phone calls from investors and lawyers. Alone, Ava cradled her belly, tears silently rolling down her face. The humiliation was staggering. She wondered, had Oliver realized in his pursuit of forbidden thrills that the collateral damage would be so immense as the scandal spread beyond the local Chicago scene? Ava knew one thing for sure: there was no more denying or deflecting. The world had just gotten a front-row seat to their marital nightmare. Desperate to hear Oliver's side of the story, and furious at his vanishing act, Ava summoned her strength and drove to the headquarters of Carmichael Innovations, located in a sleek glass-paneled tower in the heart of downtown Chicago. Security guards recognized her instantly and allowed her up, though they exchanged anxious glances. Inside Oliver's office, she found him in a tense meeting with his board of directors. They huddled around a massive mahogany table, glowering at him as if he were a pariah. The room fell silent when Ava walked in, her visibly pregnant figure, a jarring reminder of the personal turmoil overshadowing their corporate meltdown. "Gentlemen," Oliver began, attempting composure. "This is my wife, Ava." She faced them chin high, despite the dread curling in her stomach. "Could I speak to my husband alone?" she asked softly, though her eyes burned with determination. Most of the board members exited without protest, some casting disapproving looks at Oliver. Once they were gone, Ava unleashed the questions that had kept her awake at night. "You said you'd end things, but the world has proof that you didn't. How could you lie to me again?" Oliver rubbed his temples, eyes bloodshot from stress. Miranda was supposed to keep it quiet. She swore she wouldn't let it get this far. "I tried to fix it, Ava, I really did." His words only stoked her fury. "All you did was attempt to bury the truth with money," she said, voice trembling. "You've destroyed our marriage, our child's future, everything." They stared at each other across the empty boardroom. For the first time, Oliver's confident mask cracked, revealing a man trapped by his own misdeeds. "What do you want me to do?" he finally asked, voice hollow. Ava couldn't answer. She was no longer sure there was anything left he could do to make this right. In the ensuing days, the corporate fallout grew dire. Prominent investors in Carmichael Innovations withdrew support, worried about the scandal's impact on share prices. Philanthropic partners quietly severed ties, not wishing to be associated with an affair so brazenly exposed. Oliver spent most nights at the office attempting to salvage deals. The mansion felt more like a tomb than a home. Paparazzi still lurked outside the gates, waiting for a glimpse of the troubled couple. Ava found herself pacing the halls, mind whirling with uncertainty. A scheduled charity event for the Wilson Children's Hospital. A cause close to both Oliver and Ava dropped Oliver from the speaker lineup. This move spoke volumes. If even the hospital Oliver once championed was distancing itself, he was rapidly running out of allies. Realizing that her own philanthropic work was now at risk of being overshadowed by scandal. Ava called Liz White, the crisis manager she had worked with months ago. Over coffee in a secluded part of the city, Ava poured out her worries about the baby, the paparazzi, and the unrelenting media scrutiny. Liz listened sympathetically. "You need to start thinking about your own image, Ava, not just Oliver's. Because right now everyone sees you as the victim. But if this keeps spiraling, they might start seeing you as complicit or naive." Ava swallowed hard. She didn't want a war with Oliver, but it was becoming clear she needed to protect herself and her unborn child. She left that meeting with Liz, knowing she had to make some hard decisions, and soon. By now, the Carmichael scandal was headline news across major networks. CNN's Anderson Cooper, having previously hinted at the moral failings of the powerful, dedicated a segment specifically to Oliver's downfall, inviting legal and ethical experts to weigh in. The public response was brutal. Many saw Oliver as the epitome of hypocritical arrogance, preaching philanthropy, while betraying his pregnant wife behind closed doors. At the mansion, Ava tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy. She kept her prenatal appointments, attempted to rest, and even started decorating the nursery in a soft palette of yellows and greys. Yet every trip out was a gauntlet of flashing cameras and shouted questions. She began dreading the very thought of leaving home. One particular morning, the tension became unbearable. Oliver returned from another fruitless series of investor meetings, shoulders slumped. When he saw Ava packing a suitcase in the master bedroom, a flash of panic ignited in his eyes. "What are you doing?" he asked, voice trembling. "I'm going to stay with Delilah for a while," she replied, zipping the suitcase shut. I need space. This environment isn't healthy for me or the baby. Oliver opened his mouth to protest, but no words came out. Instead, he deflated like a punctured balloon, slumping against the doorway. Ava, please, he finally managed. I'm losing everything. I can't lose you too. She looked at him, sadness washing over her. I wish you'd thought of that before, Miranda. I need time to figure out if there's anything left worth saving. His eyes brimmed with tears, but he said nothing more. Ava dragged her suitcase down the grand staircase, stepping out into the barrage of paparazzi alone, her heart heavy with betrayal and sorrow. It was during Ava's stay at Delilah's cozy brownstone that she received a phone call from a blocked number. Although she usually avoided unknown calls, something compelled her to answer. A soft voice introduced itself. This is Miranda Devereaux. Please don't hang up. Shock rendered Ava momentarily mute. Her pulse hammered in her ears. Why would Miranda call her directly? She contemplated ending the call, but couldn't resist her curiosity. What do you want? She asked, struggling to keep her voice steady. Miranda sighed on the other end. Believe it or not, I never intended for this mess to go public. Someone else got hold of the security footage. I can't say more without jeopardizing my safety, but I wanted you to know it wasn't me who leaked it. Ava's throat tightened. That doesn't change what happened or how you and Oliver... She paused, tears threatening. You ruined my marriage, my life. A moment of silence passed. I understand you hate me, Miranda said quietly. But I'm calling because there's something else you should know. Oliver has been hiding more than just our affair. He's in deep trouble legally and financially. I'm sure you've noticed the deals collapsing around him. It's not just because of the scandal, there's a federal probe into his finances. Tax evasion, money laundering, I'm not certain. But it's serious. A swirl of nausea hit Ava. The idea that Oliver's downfall was bigger than an affair blindsided her. How do you know this? She finally managed. Miranda hesitated. Let's just say I overheard some conversations. Be careful, Ava. If the feds get involved, they won't hesitate to come after anyone close to Oliver, even you. Before Ava could respond, the line clicked off. She stared at her phone, heart racing with a new dread. Oliver's betrayal might pale in comparison to a looming legal catastrophe, and she was now unwittingly entangled in it. Miranda's warning weighed heavily on Ava's mind. She remembered Delilah's earlier recommendation to consult a lawyer. After days of sleepless nights, she mustered the courage to do just that. Through Delilah's referral, she met Samantha Holden, a skilled divorce attorney known for her tenacity in high-profile cases. They met in Samantha's sleek downtown office, shielded from prying paparazzi. Sitting across from the polished oak desk, Ava felt her cheeks burn with humiliation as she recounted Oliver's affair and Miranda's foreboding message about the feds. Samantha took thorough notes, her brow furrowed. This is bigger than just infidelity, Ava. If Oliver is facing a federal investigation for financial crimes, you need to protect your interests. If marital funds are implicated, the government could freeze assets. The words froze Ava's blood. I don't know the first thing about these allegations. I'm pregnant. I just want my baby to be safe. Samantha offered a sympathetic smile. I understand. My advice is to quietly file for legal separation. That way you create a clear line between your finances and Oliver's. If he's in legal jeopardy, it may protect you and your child from any fallout. And if things get worse, we can move forward with a full divorce. though the idea of legally distancing herself from Oliver filled Ava with sadness. She knew it might be her only chance at safeguarding her child's future. With trembling hands, she signed an engagement letter, officially hiring Samantha as her attorney. As she left the office, a flurry of mixed emotions assailed her: grief for the marriage she once cherished, anger at Oliver's deceptions, and a glimmer of relief that she was finally taking control of her own fate. In the aftermath of the leaked video, Oliver's reputation took a nosedive. Investors fled in droves, stock prices for Carmichael Innovations tumbled, and philanthropic projects froze. The media was relentless, and yet the public had not heard directly from Ava beyond a few brief sightings and no-comment statements. The tabloids, sniffing blood, began speculating wildly. Was Ava quietly arranging a divorce settlement? Had Oliver threatened her into silence? Some articles even suggested that her pregnancy was a fabricated ruse to garner sympathy. When Liz White, the crisis manager, called to check on Ava, she proposed a bold solution. "Ava, you need to tell your side of the story in your own words. Let the world see you're not just a silent, suffering wife." Ava hesitated. Standing in front of a microphone, addressing a horde of reporters while pregnant, no less, sounded terrifying. But Liz's argument made sense. The rumor mill was devouring her in absentia, and with Oliver refusing to come clean about his affair or financial dealings, it might be time to cut ties publicly. "I'll do it," Ava finally said, surprising even herself with her resolve. "But I'm not lying or covering for Oliver anymore. I'll tell the truth just enough to protect myself and my baby." Liz agreed, her voice brimming with encouragement. "Leave the logistics to me. I'll arrange a controlled press conference, minimal chaos. But be ready. Once you open that door, there's no going back." Ava closed her eyes, feeling the baby move. She understood the gravity of her choice. This wasn't just about clearing her name. It was about reclaiming her identity and ensuring her child wouldn't be born into a vortex of secrets. In the days leading up to the press conference, Ava resided in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. She prepared statements with Liz White, conferred with Samantha Holden, and braced herself for the inevitable media frenzy. All the while, she heard almost nothing from Oliver. Then on the eve of her scheduled press appearance, she received a late-night phone call. It was Oliver, his voice shaking with desperation. "Ava, please don't do this. Don't go public. It'll ruin any chance I have left to fix things." She steadied herself, fighting back tears. "You've had every opportunity to fix this, Oliver. You chose not to. This press conference isn't about vengeance. It's about protecting myself and our baby." The silence on the other end was palpable. Finally, he spoke, a voice hollow. "I understand you're angry. But you have no idea the legal mess I'm in. A public spectacle will just invite scrutiny. It could land me behind bars." A hollow laugh escaped Ava's lips. "That's not my fault. You did this to yourself." Oliver's next words chilled her. "If you ruin me, you ruin the future of this family. Think about that before you step in front of those cameras." She hung up, breathing heavily, as if she'd just run a marathon. For a moment, doubt tugged at her. She still cared for the father of her child, even after all his betrayals. But the time for illusions was over. Ava swallowed the lump in her throat and reminded herself why she was doing this: to clear her name, to safeguard her baby's future. Oliver had made his bed. Tomorrow, the world would finally hear her side. Morning dawned on Chicago gray clouds gathering in the sky, as if foretelling the tumultuous day ahead. Despite the swirling anxiety in her chest, Ava felt an unexpected sense of calm. She'd chosen a simple but elegant maternity dress in a soft ivory shade, the color symbolizing a fresh start in her mind. Liz White and Samantha Holden met her at the small conference venue, an airy minimalist space rented for the occasion. They'd intentionally avoided the grandiosity of a hotel ballroom, hoping to keep the focus on Ava's message rather than ostentatious surroundings. Security guards milled about outside, ensuring the event remained somewhat contained. Inside, journalists from major outlets like CNN, the Chicago Tribune, and local TV stations fidgeted with microphones. Cameras were poised, ready to broadcast every second. The hush in the room was electric. Ava's heart drummed like thunder in her ears. She kept a hand on her belly, drawing strength from the life growing within. As Liz guided her onto the small stage, Ava spotted a handful of supportive faces in the front row. Delilah, Samantha, and even a hospital representative from Wilson Children's Hospital who had come to show solidarity. Taking a steadying breath, Ava stepped behind the podium. Flashbulbs sparked, and a wave of murmurs filled the room. The tension was thick like a coiled spring on the verge of releasing. It was time to speak her truth, not just about the affair, but about the flawed man behind the philanthropic facade and the toll his secrets had taken on her life. The calm before the storm was over. Ava Carmichael was about to face the world head-on. The conference room fell silent as Ava approached the microphone. For a moment, she simply stood there, letting the bright camera lights and hushed anticipation wash over her. "Good morning," she began, voice trembling slightly. "I'm Ava Carmichael. I'm here to address the rumors and speculation regarding my marriage to Oliver Carmichael." Eyes from every corner of the room locked onto her. Journalists leaned forward, pens poised. Cameras zoomed in, capturing every flicker of emotion. Ava's heart pounded like a drum, but she pressed on. She spoke of her pregnancy, how she had longed to start a family in a loving, stable home. She confessed that Oliver's affair was both devastating and humiliating, that she had discovered undeniable proof of his betrayal. She explained that while she once considered standing by him, his continued deception and the possibility of deeper legal entanglements made it impossible for her to remain silent. At one point, a wave of emotion gripped her. Ava paused, tears threatening to cloud her vision. She glanced at Delilah, who offered a reassuring nod. Summoning her courage, Ava continued. "I'm not here for revenge," she clarified, voice growing steadier. "I'm here to protect my child and to separate myself from the lies that have come to light. Any future decisions, including legal ones, will be made with the well-being of my baby in mind." When she finished, the room erupted in questions. Liz stepped in, reminding reporters to keep their inquiries respectful and that Ava's attorney would handle anything pertaining to potential lawsuits. Ava exhaled, her body trembling with relief and nerves. She had done it. She'd laid bare her pain, her intentions, her truth. At that moment, she had no idea how drastically this single press conference would alter the course of Oliver's life and hers. Ava's press conference ricocheted through the media like a lightning strike. Clipped segments ran on national news networks. The full recording went viral on YouTube. Social media platforms erupted with support, condemnation, and endless debate. Hashtags like "Stand with Ava" and "Carmichael Collapse" trended simultaneously. Public perception of Oliver flipped almost overnight. People who once admired him for his charitable work now saw him as a manipulative hypocrite. The sincerity in Ava's statement made it clear she was not seeking revenge, but merely staking her claim to dignity and security for her unborn child. A day after the press conference, CNN's Anderson Cooper weighed in again, praising Ava for her courage and condemning the toxic culture that allowed powerful men to evade accountability. The Chicago Tribune published an op-ed titled "The Strength of Ava Carmichael, Lauding Her Poise Under Pressure." Corporate repercussions were swift. A major investment round that Oliver had been courting fell apart. The few remaining partners in Carmichael Innovations distanced themselves, hastily removing Oliver's name from promotional materials and websites. Even philanthropic boards started voting him out to preserve their reputations. Ava watched the news unfold from Delilah's living room. It felt surreal to witness the magnitude of the fallout she had unleashed by simply speaking her truth. A twinge of guilt gnawed at her Oliver's downfall was monumental, and part of her still cared about the father of her child. But she couldn't deny the satisfaction of finally freeing herself from complicity in his deception. Little did she realize the next blow in this unraveling saga would come not from tabloid headlines, but from a place with the power to permanently reshape Oliver's destiny, and by extension her own. Just when the media firestorm seemed at its peak, another bombshell dropped. The U.S. Attorney's Office announced a federal investigation into Carmichael Innovations. News broke that Oliver Carmichael was being indicted on charges of tax evasion, wire fraud, and securities fraud. The timing mere days after Ava's press conference sent shockwaves through financial circles. Cameras swarmed outside the federal courthouse as Oliver was spotted arriving with his legal team, forced to enter a plea in front of a judge. The humiliating spectacle was broadcast live, capturing every grimace and tense exchange. The very networks that once celebrated Oliver's philanthropic feats now tracked his every misstep. Ava learned of the indictment through a news alert on her phone. Her stomach churned. She sat on Delilah's couch phone in hand and watched the live coverage. Oliver looked haggard shadows under his eyes, the weight of impending consequences etched into his every movement. The charges carried severe penalties, if convicted. Oliver faced the possibility of a long prison sentence. This was beyond mere scandal. It was a life-altering reckoning. Yet the indictments also served as a shield for Ava. With formal charges laid against Oliver, Samantha Holden moved swiftly to bolster Ava's separation case, ensuring none of the allegedly laundered funds were connected to Ava or her unborn child. As the news cameras pivoted from sensational gossip to grave legal analysis, Ava felt a swirl of conflicting emotions. Relief that she was extricating herself from Oliver's web of lies, sorrow for the father of her child, and a haunting worry about what kind of future lay ahead for her baby, one with a father potentially behind bars. The day after Oliver's court appearance, Ava woke to a text from an unknown number. "I'm sorry." Oh. She stared at the message for several minutes, waves of sadness rolling through her. His apology was too little too late, like a whisper in a roaring storm. But it was better than silence. Over the next week, Oliver's attempts to contact her became more frequent. Voicemails and texts appeared daily. Ava listened to some tears gathering in her eyes as Oliver's usually confident voice cracked with desperation. He begged for forgiveness, confessed he had been reckless, and claimed to still love her. Yet Ava couldn't forget the nights he'd lied to her face. She couldn't erase the memory of that leaked video or the swirl of scorn she'd endured from the public, and she certainly couldn't ignore the federal charges. Samantha advised her not to respond, at least until the separation process and potential custody arrangements were established. But deep inside, Ava grappled with conflicting emotions. She remembered the Oliver who once left her handwritten love notes every morning, the Oliver who built a children's library wing at the local hospital. Could that man still exist? Or had he always been an illusion? In quiet moments, she would place a hand on her growing belly heart, aching for the child who might never know a father outside prison walls. For all Oliver's sins, Ava couldn't deny that she wished he had chosen a different path, one that might have let them remain a family. Despite the turmoil, Ava discovered she wasn't alone. In the wake of her public statement, letters of support flooded in from women who had faced similar betrayals. Some messages came from single mothers who offered encouragement and practical tips on raising a child independently. The outpouring moved Ava to tears. It gave her a renewed sense of resolve. Philanthropic circles that had once rolled out the red carpet for Oliver now embraced Ava instead. Organizers at the Wilson Children's Hospital invited her to speak at an upcoming fundraiser, praising her authenticity and resilience. Representatives from various women's advocacy groups reached out inviting her to collaborate on initiatives that assisted pregnant women in crisis. Ava felt a flicker of hope. Though her marriage was crumbling, she could funnel her pain into a new purpose, advocating for women caught in relationships eroded by power imbalances and betrayals. Delilah even suggested they start a foundation to provide legal and emotional support to pregnant women facing domestic or financial struggles. Yet with each invitation came the inevitable question, what's next for Oliver's wife? The irony wasn't lost on Ava. She was no longer Oliver's wife in any practical sense, but the world still tied her identity to his. She resolved to carve out her own name and mission separate from his tarnished legacy. In her quieter moments, though, when the well-wishers and supporters had gone home, she still faced the emptiness left by Oliver's absence. Even with the world rallying around her some nights, she felt more alone than ever. A few weeks into Oliver's legal battles, Ava received a call from his attorney. He wanted to arrange a private meeting. No press, no cameras, just Oliver and Ava in a neutral location. The request startled her. A part of her had begun to imagine a future with no direct contact at all. Despite Samantha's caution, Ava agreed, feeling the child shift in her womb, like a gentle reminder that Oliver was still the father. They chose a small law firm's conference room downtown, one with tinted windows that blocked any paparazzi from capturing the encounter. Oliver arrived first. Dressed in a tailored suit, he looked paler, thinner, and burdened by a stress that had etched lines into his face. When Ava entered, they locked eyes. For a moment, neither spoke. The tension was so thick she could barely breathe. Finally, he broke the silence. "I know I've lost your trust, and maybe I'll never regain it. But I wanted to see you to ask about the baby." His voice was hushed, almost reverent. Ava swallowed, placing a protective hand on her belly. "The baby's fine, healthy," she said, her voice hoarse. "I'm due in a few months." Oliver exhaled a shaky breath, a mixture of relief and sorrow. "I made an unforgivable mistake. And now I'm paying for it in ways I never imagined. But if there's any chance at all, I want to be there when our child is born." A swirl of conflicting emotions welled in Ava. She wanted to protect herself, to keep him at arm's length. Yet she couldn't deny the child's need to know its father, assuming he wasn't behind bars. I can't promise anything right now," she replied cautiously. Oliver nodded, understanding that words wouldn't erase the hurt he'd caused. The meeting ended quietly with more questions than answers. As Ava left, she wondered if there was any glimmer of reconciliation, or if it was simply too late for that. Time moved forward, even if Ava felt stuck in emotional quicksand. Weeks turned into months, and her pregnancy edged into its final trimester. Her belly swelled, making everyday tasks more cumbersome, but also filling her with a fierce, protective love for the child growing inside. Oliver's legal battles took center stage in national media. Each court date brought fresh revelations of financial misconduct, fraudulent tax filings, shady shell companies, and possible insider trading. Courtroom sketches of Oliver flooded the news, capturing his anxious eyes and trembling posture. Still, he occasionally sent Ava messages, updates on his case lamentations about losing major assets, even an ultrasound-themed baby blanket he had purchased before the scandal blew up. Ava read and received these gestures with guarded compassion. She was no longer naive enough to believe they fixed anything, but she could see the desperation in his attempts. Meanwhile, Ava's philanthropic work blossomed. She collaborated with Liz White to hold a charity drive for underprivileged pregnant women, collecting baby supplies, prenatal vitamins, and funds for maternal care. The event drew significant media coverage, with many praising Ava for turning personal tragedy into positive impact. Through it all, she grappled with her upcoming childbirth, uncertain whether Oliver would or should be there. The clock was ticking toward a new life entering the world, and she had yet to reconcile the role Oliver would play. As each day passed, the question burned brighter. Could a man so consumed by lies and greed ever become a loving father? Ava's labor came unexpectedly one evening well before her due date. She had been at Delilah's brownstone, finalizing details for another charitable event, when a sharp pain sliced through her. Gasping, she doubled over, her heart pounding in sudden alarm. Delilah rushed her to the nearest hospital, the swirl of city lights casting an eerie glow against the anxious hush of the car ride. By the time they arrived, Ava's contractions had intensified, leaving her breathless and trembling. Nurses whisked her into a maternity suite, hooking her up to monitors. Panicked Delilah contacted Samantha Holden, who in turn thought to call Oliver's attorney. Within an hour, Oliver appeared at the hospital, looking frantic and disheveled. The medical staff recognized his face from the scandalous headlines, but remained professional. Ava, though startled to see him, was too overwhelmed by pun to protest. Time blurred in a dizzying swirl of contractions, medical jargon, and shouted encouragement. Ava was gripped by a primal blend of fear and determination, tears leaking from the corners of her eyes. Oliver hovered by her side, tentatively offering a hand. In her pain, she grasped it instinctively. Hours later, after what felt like an eternity, Ava heard the baby's first cry. Relief and awe collided in her chest. The nurse carefully placed a tiny, wriggling infant in Ava's arms. She sobbed, pressing kisses to the baby's delicate forehead. Through tear-blurred vision, she saw Oliver standing nearby, eyes shining with raw emotion. In that instant, their entire scandalous past receded, eclipsed by the fragile miracle of new life. Yet the question lingered. Would this fleeting moment of unity carve a lasting path forward for them? Or would the shadows of betrayal and legal peril snuff it out? Back at the hospital, Ava watched as Oliver gently rocked Amelia, his face softened with awe. For a moment, he looked like the man she once loved before Leeson scandal. He whispered stories to Amelia, promising to change to be present. Ava remained guarded. "This doesn't undo everything," she said quietly. "I know," Oliver replied, eyes on their daughter, "but I want to earn your trust back for her." Later, as discharge papers were signed, Oliver asked if he could come home with them. Ava paused, then shook her head. "Not yet. Amelia and I need time." He nodded visibly, crushed but respectful. "Thank you for letting me be here." As she cradled Amelia and stepped into the waiting car, Ava felt both the weight of the past and the hope of a future. Trust was fragile, but for her daughter's sake, she was willing to leave the door cracked just enough. In the weeks after Amelia's birth, Ava embraced motherhood in quiet refuge, away from media glare. Oliver, facing trial, visited often gentle with Amelia, sincere in his efforts. Ava remained cautious, but let him in a little at a time. Then came his sentencing. Found guilty of tax evasion and securities fraud, Oliver received 5 years in federal prison. Outside the courthouse, tears slipped down his face as he told Ava, "I'll serve my time. I hope there's still a chance for Amelia, and maybe for us." Ava, holding Amelia close, replied softly, "We'll see. One day at a time." As Oliver was led away, Ava stood beneath the Chicago sky, her daughter nestled in her arms. The fairy tale had crumbled, but something more honest remained a second chance. Not for romance, but for truth, for healing, and for a life finally free of secrets. She was ready to build that future, one step at a time. Ava Carmichael's life changed the moment the leaked footage of her husband's affair hit the internet. But it was the power of her own voice at that pivotal press conference that truly redefined her destiny. While Oliver's empire crumbled under the weight of his transgressions and legal battles, Ava emerged stronger, driven by her love for her newborn daughter and a determination to carve out a future rooted in truth. Ultimately, hers is a story of resilience, triumphing over betrayal of motherhood, guiding the path to self-discovery. Ava transformed from a silent figure, overshadowed by her husband's fortune, into a public advocate for women facing emotional, financial, and marital turmoil. Though Oliver's journey led him to a prison cell, Ava found the courage to stand on her own, proving that even the darkest revelations can pave the way for newfound purpose. If you found meaning or inspiration in Ava's journey, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support empowers us to uncover more stories that shine a light on the power of truth and resilience. Together, let's continue inspiring and uplifting one another, one extraordinary tale at a time.